Hi, you all. I will try to speak over the sound of this time, this fan belt, which is really, really loud right now. How you doing? Hope you're okay. Happy Monday. All right, I'm gonna pause. You're gonna pause the video. You're gonna read this question. You're going to write the correct answer, and then you're gonna tell me why one of the other answers is wrong. In particular, I think you might want to look at prompt A and maybe prompt C pretty carefully. So please pause the video and take care of that on your bell work. All right, today we're talking about who survives in a population. You are going to need the assignment called the study of the story of the frigifers. It is not the part with bean munchers. I printed only a single story. You're looking for the handout that begins like this, or honestly, you could just listen to the story because I didn't collect the handout. The other thing we did was start the Hardy-Weinberg Pogel, and we did the lab notebook check for the unit, what I think of as part 1 of the unit 7 notes. Part 2 is kind of going to be next week as we're moving through. So we took a look at the Canvas calendar together today. I wanted to remind you, set on something. I wanted to remind you that modeling evolutionary, what is it? I think it's modeling forces or something. The 7.4 assignment that's due at 11:59 p.m. this Thursday. You really want to bring a completed project to our class. It will save you up to an hour of extra work. We're going to bring it to class on Friday. Now, obviously, if you are projectile vomiting, stay home. But if you're able to do a draft of that assignment and then bring it, you will make sure that you have designed a story or read an article that is actually about the forces that are reviewed for that specific story. It's really important people know this topic, and people get it mixed up all the time, which is why I'm really hammering it home. So there's some other things now on the agenda, like the SAT is next Wednesday, days when I'll be out, spring break, the bio exam. Those have all been added to the calendar page on Canvas, so you might find it useful. Alrighty, fitness in biological terms, as you learned from watching the videos, is the story of surviving and reproducing to make successful offspring who then have successful offspring. So unlike the idea of human fitness, in which I have spent all winter not going enough to the gym and realize that I get winded at the top of a flight of stairs, it's time to do more stairs, right? Fitness is this idea that in a specific environment, a specific trait allows an organism to better survive to reproductive age and then have offspring who also survive to reproductive age. So let me tell you the story of the frigifer. Long ago, hang on, this is a story from my student teaching, and so I still think it's lovely. I hope you enjoy it. There's a dad joke in here, right? I'm wearing a t-shirt about it right now, even I'll show you in a minute. Long ago, in a place very far from here, there lived a population of organisms called the frigifer. Aren't they adorable? Frigifers lived in an area with trees, soft sunlight, and grassy land that was delicious, and all was well. Then, as has happened all the time throughout history, though nearly not as fast as humans are making it happen right now, the climate in this place began to shift and it became warmer and drier. Grass dried up, it became less nutritious, and that means the population of frigifers got smaller and smaller. Then, one day, as happens all the time, a frigifer was born with a mutation. Now, this particular frigifer's mutation came during the process between baby's first cell of being a zygote and making the sex cells of the next generation. So it was passed on to that next generation. And it turns out this frigifer has 2 tails. Now, maybe this frigifer, I don't know, can it use them as a propeller and like fly around and look for more grass? Even if it can, it turns out that this mutation, you have to be able to survive as well. So if I switch into slideshow mode here, you'll be able to see, is it Morphet? No, they are not. And so it says dead gene, but it really should say dead allele cemetery. That allele, although it would have been passed on, does not get passed on because you have to survive and reproduce in order to move a gene through a population. So a long time passed. It was still hard for the frigifers. It was still really dry out. And then one day, a frigifer was born with a new mutation, and it was, click, 5 legs. Is it more fit? Well, maybe it can run farther before stopping or run faster to find more grass. But even if it can do that, it's survive and reproduce. So that gene, oh no. So that allele of that gene does not spread through the population. This is feeling a little bit like, have you ever sat as a high schooler and watched the food court at the mall? It's feeling a little like that. All right. One day, a mutation was, a Frigga was born with a mutation and had 3 eyeballs. Is this animal more fit? Maybe it can see the future of where the grass is going to be, but it's survived and reproduced. So here we are at the Dead Gene Cemetery. But then one day, as happens all the time, a Friggifer was born with a mutation that led to a phenotypic difference, and it had a long neck. Is it more fit? Perhaps you noticed that there might be some tasty treats near here, but there are 2 pieces. So let's see. Oh no. Oh, wait. Over time, Friggifer with a long neck had a selective advantage because it was able to find that food source that other ones couldn't. And without too much detail, in the next generation of Friggifers, there were a lot more Friggifers that survived that had long necks. So for a while, there were both long neck and short legged, necked Friggifers. But then over time, eventually, the trait was so successful that even when the grass came back, there was still a selective advantage to being able to eat leaves. And so those Friggifers were able to continue living, feeling happy. It's a mix-up of the word giraffe. And so I want to tell a story to you. This is a Mad Lib. You know about Mad Libs where you like pick a word and you put it in again and again? Here's mine for you. Long ago, there was a species that looked much like the giraffe, except it didn't have a long neck. It was called the Friggifer. One day, a random mutation happened and one Friggifer was born with a long neck. This gave the animal an advantage over the other Friggifers. The mutated animal lived and reproduced. It passed the heritable genes in its DNA for the long neck to its babies. Over hundreds of generations, all of the Friggifers without long necks eventually became extinct because they were not as able to survive and reproduce. This is the reason that today all giraffes have long necks. In evolutionary traits, this type of trait is called an adaptation. Now, if you read the unit notes for 7.1 and 7.2, you know that in biology, individuals don't adapt. That's the Lamarckian viewpoint. Poor Lamarck, he got so many things right, but he got this part wrong. And this is why we teach him to school kids. Individuals don't adapt. It's not like, oh, a Friggifer needed a longer neck, and so it stretched its neck higher, and then it passed that stretched neck on. Sometimes that does happen with stuff that's inside the cytoplasm of the egg, because the egg is typically the cell that gets used for a baby's first cell for that zygote, but it's beyond the scope of APBio. In biology, individuals don't adapt. Only populations can. And that is because, as we'll learn this week with stories of like the rock pocket mouse, for example, selective pressure changes the outcome of who survives to reproduction. So, okay, before Charles Darwin, there are a whole bunch of people who've thought about natural selection. So we know that there are faith traditions in Bloomington where what we're going to learn about in Unit 7, as required by the College Board, is directly at odds with some people's faith learnings and faith traditions. So I just wanted to make this point that the ideas that we're going to be talking about have shown up in different people's thinking in a lot of different ways, and from all over the world. And so focusing on Charles Darwin actually does this like erasure of global contributions to what we think of as natural history of biology. There's a really famous quote in biology education that says, "Nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution." What a lot of people don't know is a really devout Christian thinker and writer is the person who first said that in 1973. And in fact, he's riffing on this phrase, light of evolution, from a Jesuit Catholic priest. So lots of different faith traditions, not just the Christian one shown here, where scholars have thought about some of the ideas that show up in the work that we're going to be thinking about together today. So, but I want to switch gears and talk to you about this pig. Look, this pig does not have any hair, and it doesn't have any hair because in guinea pigs, this allele means that their guinea pigs' hair falls out in about 4 days after birth. I think it's a Bradford guinea pig. What a champion. We remembered ideas about homozygous, heterozygous, dominant, and recessive today because you're going to need them to think about Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. So we did some Pogling. If you weren't here, this is the content for 7.5. You are really going to want to do that before we move into like Wednesday and Thursday, and you're looking at rock pocket mouse data. So More vocabulary review because now I've got a Punnett square in here. Remember Punnett squares? And we thought together about how in an organism, either you know or you're trying to guess the ancestors information, but there's a 50-50 shot that you'll get one of each of those. More on that in Unit 5. All right, to be biologically fit, what are the two things an organism needs to do? That's it for me. Hope you're doing well out there. See you soon. Bye.